Welcome to the Leader to Leader podcast. I'm your host, Susan Spears, President and CEO of the Fredericksburg Regional Chamber of Commerce. Our guest today is Carl Pates. He's a Senior Vice President and Chief Technical Officer at HTD Global. Carl, welcome.
Thank you for having me today. It's great.
Yes. HTD Global is a defense contractor here in the Fredericksburg, Virginia region. Tell me a little bit about what HTD Global is.
Yeah, HTD Global is a defense contractor, and we manufacture a lot of defense products for the defense all around, not only in the U.S., but all around the world. And so we've got plants all throughout the U.S., but our research and development headquarters is located right here in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And I'm born and raised here in Spotsylvania County and always wanted to develop an engineering center here. And so it's kind of a dream come true to actually have that part of HTT be right here in Fredericksburg.
Well, I am sitting with someone who always wanted to have a, what did you say, engineering
center?
I'm a music major. So I grew up in Fredericksburg, you in Spotsylvania, so right nearby each other. We have some of a similar background, but our view on life, our way that we look at things might be a little different. You know, I've got that creative, like,
right brain, left brain.
Flowery thing, and and that's what makes the world go around. I've been out to your headquarters there and seen some pretty amazing things when you've had different grand openings and celebrations, when you've had various milestones. Seems like am I right that there's something like robotic or?
It's so much fun. So the technology in the world is changing so fast today. The engineers are developing robotics and autonomous systems, robotic arms, that think for themselves, AI in all of the products, and it's just so neat to be at the forefront of that and really help our defense and our soldiers actually give some capability in their hands. So that part of it's really fun, just taking that technology and developing into something cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow. So, and then, so I mentioned two titles. I always love it when you have two titles. So what does that mean? Like, what does the Senior Vice President role do and the Chief Technology Officer? How do those merge? How are they different?
It's a good question. Not too many people have ever asked me that question. So the Senior Vice President piece, actually I get involved in the operations and running the business. Mm-hmm. As part of my role in HDT, I'm actually looking at other businesses and acquiring other businesses and how they fit within HDT. And then this Chief Technology Officer piece of it is I get to go out, and it's the fun part of the job. I get to go out and talk to other businesses and people and say, what are the new technologies that are out there? How can we develop a product for our soldiers and our warfighters? How can we take that and utilize that? So I get to, all the different products that we manufacture within HDT, I get to play that role on the technology side. It's really fun.
Wow. It sounds frightening to me, but really fun for you. I just love it. Well, there's got to be a story behind all that. You don't wake up one day and you're just in that role. So tell me about some of the background. Like tell me about your story. How did you get to where you are today?
So I got my PhD in engineering at Old Dominion University, and I worked at NASA Langley for a while and did the researchy thing. And that just wasn't for me. Okay. Didn't turn into anything. I wanted to be able to create stuff and stuff that you can see and see how it works. And so I got into the private sector and started working up in Michigan actually for a few years for Roush Racing and Roush Industries and developing products and really like that. But I really had to get back home because my roots were here in Spotsylvania County and my family's here. And so I really wanted to get back. And I started working for a small company called New World Associates here in Fredericksburg. And New World actually was acquired by HDT, so that's back in 2008. And then at that time, we were acquiring different companies, and there just really wasn't any leadership around the engineering piece, and just saw the opportunity to kind of step up and take some responsibility and really lead HDT on the engineering side and pull engineers from all across the country and how do we work together and get things done. And then just kind of grew from there and grew into different leadership roles within the organization.
It's really interesting to hear that timeline, because in my mind when you said 2008, I think that's about how long I've known you. Because I remember we were doing a lot of things here at the Chamber with visiting military bases and putting on a lot of military-related, defense contracting-related events around that time. And I remember you being at a lot of those events.
In the MAC meetings.
Yeah, So I'm going to digress for a minute because you mentioned Michigan. What was that like? I mean, is there anything you remember that was your favorite thing about being in Michigan?
My least favorite thing was the cold weather, and my wife did not like the cold weather, which was a big motivator for us to move back down south. But I really liked the just being in the automotive industry, the technical, geeky side of me.
Yeah.
Just really enjoyed that part of it, and the industrial part of it, and making parts and designing around automobiles and stuff like that. I really enjoyed that part of it. That was my favorite part.
Yeah, it's because it's just got to be real different. The furthest I've lived that wasn't in the Fredericksburg region was Richmond, which is an hour away. So it wasn't a big culture change. I was there for 10 years after I went to VCU. But you went to at least another state for a while.
And I remember, like, my first winter up there, it snowed 3 or 4 inches, and I called my boss and I said, okay, so we're not going to work today. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I said, well, in Virginia, if it's going to snow, the work closes down. He goes, no, you're in Michigan now. We're coming to work. So that was my first experience of the winter in Michigan.
All those things make a difference in your work life, your quality and your balance and everything. So at this stage, you've probably got things pretty comfortable for you in how you balance all of the work and life and your commute or non-commute. What have you done over time to make that an arrangement that's something that you really enjoy?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. My work balance is something I've always struggled with.
Okay.
So it's one of the things that I have to work on, and I have to check in with my wife and make sure that I'm doing okay there. But it's for me, just being the detail-oriented guy. I have to put stuff on my calendar and have to really focus on the home life to make sure that I'm doing those things and really turn off the work piece of it, because if otherwise I would work from 5 a.m. to 5 a.m. and didn't even know that the day changed, and that happened. So it's one of those things that I struggle with on a daily basis.
So somebody's listening to this and they're completely relating to that, and somebody else is listening to it going, oh my God, how do you work so much, right? And part of that, I think, is you love what you do.
I love it. I do.
You absolutely love it. And so that's wonderful when you can be married to not just your wife, but your job that you love, finding that balance. So I hear you use the word struggle. So real leaders are willing to be open about some of the things that they constantly work on and try to do, improvements all the time. To that end, you were in our Leadership Fredericksburg class not too long ago, and that was certainly a joy to have a senior leader like yourself. I'm not talking about his age, people. He's probably a year or two younger than me, and that means he's still pretty young. But it was really great to have you in there in the last year or two. And if there's anything you'd like to share about being a senior leader and actually learning something in a leadership program.
Yeah, I think you probably hear this a lot from other leaders, especially the ones that are as old as I am, is I wish I took that class 10, 15 years ago, because I learned so much. And just by trials and tribulations of going through leadership events where you're trying to mentor people and lead activities and doing things the wrong way and kind of, okay, back up, let me go this other direction based on what I've learned. But I think I could have gained so much more if I would have done that early. But just putting some of the classwork pieces behind what you've learned through your years and say, oh, that's what that leadership means. That's what that piece of it means. And just being able to share some of those with other leaders, that was one of the most valuable things for me. Because as a leader within HDT, there's things that you can't share and that you can't get into the details, but being able to share with other leaders and kind of walk through those and how would you handle this? And, what do you think about this? That was really beneficial for me.
Yeah, sometimes it's the most basic thing that's that one step in your leadership that I just didn't, it's been in my head. I didn't think to ask or to share. And wonder why they don't understand. Or I gave the direction once, and in Leadership Fredericksburg, J.R. Flatter always says, communicate, 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 and then communicate some more. And maybe by then they get the message, and you're like, ugh. But he's right. He really is, especially when it's an important message, that you need to get through your team or any others around you, you know. How about that Lmap? We do this coaching session that's a 360. I think that's a really hard thing to do. You have to be very vulnerable as a human, as a leader, to say to all these people around you and the circle around you in your world, will you take this survey and rate me?
Right.
And then you get the feedback, and then you have to sit down and talk about it. How was that process for you?
It was incredible for me, and I had Dave actually walk through, Dave Quarterman walk through that, and it was really helpful for Dave to actually go through and digest that and really kind of talk through that for me. I actually cried the first time that I read that, and I'm not a crier. But it was the first time that I actually got feedback to see, okay, let me take my temperature and how am I doing as a leader within HDT, and some of the feedback I got was really moving.
Oh, that's lovely.
And so it was pretty powerful for me to read my Lmap, and it gave me some things to work on and some things that I knew I wasn't doing, you know, where my weaknesses are that I try to work on, and it highlighted those, which was okay. But it was really beneficial. I really enjoyed the Lmap process.
Wow, that's a great story. I hadn't realized that front part of it had happened for you.
Yeah.
How, you know, that's great news that you had good feedback like that too. One of the things that really stood out to me when you were in the leadership class, on the first day we asked people to share, you know, who are you, where do you work, what's your title, why are you here, that kind of thing. We go around a room of about 28, 29 people or so. And when we got to Carl, if you didn't know him, you would have thought he worked for something called 516 Project, because he really was just kind of beaming about this. And I knew that was something he did on a volunteer level versus work, but it was more, I would say, on his heart. It's another passion. So I would like to give you a chance to talk about that here.
It is a passion for me. I serve on the board for 516 Project, and James and I work really well together. We've been working for a few years together, and I just feel like that's my higher calling. My purpose in life is just to go love others and help share my Christian values and my views around Jesus. That's what 516's project is about. And the leadership struggles are no different there than they are at HDT. So it's kind of interesting to use some of my skills that God's given me in that vein, and really just go love on people and help people. And it's so rewarding when somebody that can never repay you just loves on you and appreciates. And sometimes I feel like I get more out of that than actually the person that we're helping.
Right.
So it's just awesome.
And how do you help people through 516 Project? What do they do?
So normally we'll go in and we fix things on their house. So if we make sure that they have a safe, a warm, and a dry environment to live in. And so if they need a ramp to get in their home, if they've got a leaky roof, if their bathroom's not working, things like that, we'll go in and we'll fix it. And the best thing about it is when you come in, they know that you're not asking for money, you're doing this out of the kindness of your heart. And all of those barriers that they have just come right down. And you're able just to love on them in a way that probably people haven't loved on them in a long time. And it opens the door to show the love of Jesus and what Jesus did specifically for me and what they can do in their life. So that's the whole purpose of 516.
That's pretty awesome. And for our listeners, if you want to know more about that, the James Robertson that Carl just mentioned, I interviewed him on this podcast a few months ago, so you can scroll down through the list and find his name and listen to hear more about that and James' vision and how he's worked with 516 Project. They sure have grown since they started. 5 years ago, maybe?
About 5 years, yeah. 5 years, exactly.
That's amazing to see, when you just really put leaders' heads together, how you can make things happen. Don't you think?
And it's crazy. We're doing a bunch of disaster relief all up and down the East Coast, and so that's even growing into bigger. And James and I just sit there in awe on what God has done and how he's grown and put people in our paths that we interact with that are just making it explode. It's just so much fun. I can't wait to do it full time. So one day. Because he's at least 30 years away from retirement. 30 minutes?
If you're on a Supreme Court judge kind of path, right? Then maybe you're on that kind of retirement. today. For our listeners, this is kind of spur of the moment. I was in a committee meeting with Carl. I've been trying to get him on here for a while, and we had a cancellation with something afterwards, and I just grabbed him and said, "Can I come and get you and interview you today?" And he said yes, and we fit that in. So I appreciate you doing this quickly today.
Sure.
And so forth. Carl, if you had a favorite motto or saying that you have, could you share that with us?
Yeah, my favorite motto that I use at work all the time with my direct reports is family first. And so at the end of the day, it's all about relationships. And back to the defense contractor, for me, it's all about your foxhole and how are people going to get in your foxhole and going to work as a team, and how are you going to interact with your team. And a lot of what I do is just focus on the relationships. So I get to know the people outside of the work environment and who they are and who their families are. And whenever any issue comes up, hey, you take care of family first. That's the most important. Work will be here when you get back, but it's all about family first. And to me, it's all about the relationships. Back to what JR is saying, communicate, relationships, because the day comes, you're going to have those hard conversations with your direct reports.
Yes.
You're going to have to get them to rally around a mission or a vision. And so everything hinges on the foundation of those relationships. So that's what I focus on. So they always hear me say family first, family first, family first, because I want them to know that needs to be their focus, and that I value their family. I value them as a person, and I don't think people care until they know you care as a leader. Right. So I think for me, that's the most important thing for me. And I really believe in the servant leadership thing. I try to play that out with my direct reports, and how can I serve them, because how can they be successful and make them successful? If they're successful, then I'm going to be successful. The company's going to be successful. So I really focus on that.
That's great. I'm sure there's been a skeptic or two through the years that's come in to work with or for you and seen the writing on the wall, family first, or heard you all say it, but wasn't sure, and then you have to walk that walk. You all have to really create that environment. It sounds like from your Lmap feedback and everything you're saying that you guys really do that.
We do that. Yeah. It's all about the people. The people are the best asset that you have, and so without the right people, you really can't. You can't run a business.
And then getting right to the core of that mission and making a difference for the defense industry, for our warriors that are defending our country. Wow. You do a lot of cool stuff, my friend.
It's fun. It's been a good life.
Awesome. Well, as we wind this down, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners?
No, I think I'm just so thankful for you and what you do for the Chamber, and just the leadership program that you run through the Chamber is just so fantastic. I think one of the things that came away after going through that and seeing a lot of the younger folks in there, we're in some good hands. There are some great leaders that are getting ready to step up and be part of this community, and really, I'm just so excited to see them step into some leadership roles. And I just came away with that just beaming of how awesome it's going to be. So I'm excited to kind of see them grow through the years, and step in and help mentor in areas that I can where I add value, and it's going to be interesting. But thank you for all that you do for the Chamber.
Thank you, Carl. It's a pleasure to know you, and it's been great to spend this time with you here today. So thank you. And thank you to our listeners for spending that time with us today. I'm Susan Spears, and our guest was Carl Pates, the Senior Vice President and Chief Technology Officer at HTD Global here in Fredericksburg, Virginia. If you have not already subscribed to the Chamber's We Are Business podcast, please go ahead and do so. And now you'll know when new episodes are available. And while you're at it, if you could just jump on over and give us a review so others can find us easily, we'd be so appreciative. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.